Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule today. We sincerely appreciate it. First, a little about the webinar contributors today. I'm Suhak Kansara, founder and CEO of BPro. I have an architecture and a master's degree in urban planning with 20 plus years in the industry. As a planner myself, I speak your planning language, but at the same time, I wear the technology hat through Esri's lens, allowing me to bridge the gap between planning and GIS. We have Julie Latham here from City of Littleton, Colorado. She focuses heavily on housing policy initiative at the city, and we have been working with the City of Littleton very diligently to leverage ArcGIS Urban to test various housing policies to reach its affordable housing goals. We have Elliot Hartley joining with us all the way from UK, from GD3D. He shares a similar professional background with degrees in architecture and urban planning. Elliot is considered a subject matter expert in leveraging city engine tools and capabilities that relates to planning process. All right. The purpose of today's webinar is to share various GIS tools available as a planning toolkit. Now, being in the industry for a long time and hearing from various city planners from all community sizes, small to large cities, their needs are very straightforward. Zoning regulations can be extremely complicated to interpret depending on the complex ordinances that they have written. They get a lot of phone calls and emails a day asking for basic requests like what zone do I fall under? Can I build such and such? What regulations are applicable for my property? And for each one of those requests, they go through the exact same steps over and over. And our experience says that they get about 15, 20 phone or emails a day with average about 20, 30 minutes of research. So a lot of time and energy is spent in just finding those basic answers. And only if you could look into various different type of technology tools for zoning related methodologies that simplifies planners' daily workflow, and that could help us answer straightforward requests, such as I said earlier, interpret zoning accurately, help visualize future development patterns, help truly know before you build. In other words, make informed decisions. And that's exactly what this webinar is all about. We are going to present you various GIS tools and methodologies that you could consider for your planning and zoning workflows. Now, take a moment and digest this. And we have some Esri representation, so I'm going to be very, very careful when I say all that. But did you know that the ArcGIS desktop has got more than 1,000 tools, more than 200 geoprocessing tools, 100 plus analyst extensions, and they have hundreds of product updates every quarter. It is such a fast-moving target that today more than majority of the local government organization are still using the older version of the desktop software, which is the ArcMap, which is set to go out of service by 2025. You with me? So the challenges for the cities and local government when it comes to even embracing GIS technology could be a very difficult task. Now, the interesting thing is all these tools are part of a larger Esri ecosystem. They're all interlinked and connect to an outside software platforms. So we are showing a few of them outside here, like AutoCAD, SketchUp, Twinmotion, Unreal, that are typically being used for planning and zoning. And to kind of generalize and loosely making this comparison, I can almost relate this Esri product offerings as an O'Reilly Auto Part company. And I know I'm kind of making a very wild comparison here, but hang in with me. O'Reilly offers thousands of auto parts, and if you know which part goes where, in which order, and how to configure it, one can build an engine or even a full-size car themselves. However, if you don't recognize, if you don't configure it correctly, then you could meet with unmatched consequences. The same way as this ecosystem is strong and robust, it is easy to use if you have a full understanding of how each of these tools are interlinked, configured, and how it can be used in a specific order, then they can be fully leveraged to get the desired outcome. Make sense? But the big question is, us planners have enough to deal with on a daily basis, and we may not have the time, flexibility, technology know-how, or even a financial and technical resources to fully comprehend the true scope of these amazing tools. So what we will try to do is to simplify the logic further and help you make sense out of it. Okay. But before moving forward, allow me to do a quick poll to learn about your organizational challenges for the use of technology, and hoping that we can maybe fine tune just a little bit uh, for the rest of our presentation. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna run a poll. Okay, I'm gonna start a poll. And if you don't mind, okay. So basically the question is, what are the biggest challenges in making use of the technology in your organization? Is it the lack of available staff or technical resources? You don't know where to start. Technology is changing too fast. I totally agree. Maybe in something that doesn't fit in, or maybe just how to send a rocket in space. So I'll just give it a few more seconds. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Maybe 5 more seconds and I'll get the ball rolling. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm just going to end the poll. Awesome. All right. So I think it looks like we got some few bunch with a good sense of humor. So mostly it's the available staff or technical resources and just overwhelmingness of where to start. So thank you for that. All right. So I'm just going to make a very simplified version of all the tool sets available to planners through ArcGIS ecosystem. I'm hoping that it would make a lot more sense by the time we are done walking you through each of these tools, okay? I promise. We would like to categorize all these available tools in easy to an advanced workflows. For instance, if you are an organization with very little resources and financial means, you can always rely on ArcGIS Online and Experience Builder to build those custom applications. They are relatively very easy to configure, require very little understanding of the ArcGIS ecosystem. They are extremely time-efficient way of working, and of course, a very low cost of entry. In the medium workflow category, we'll try to demonstrate the GeoZone tool, which is a proprietary tool developed by ViewPro that are applicable in ready-to-use ArcGIS Online-based tools. And then we'll showcase advanced workflows where how ArcGIS Urban and City Engine can be leveraged to meet your needs. So let's start with the end first. Let's start with how advanced workflows really work with ArcGIS Urban. And to showcase the use case scenario, please help me welcome Julie Levin with the City of Littleton, Colorado. Back to you, Julie.
Thanks, Suhag. Good morning or afternoon. I'm just going to go and talk a little bit about the background for how Littleton started this project and the context in which we were doing this work. So we adopted, so if you want to go to the next slide. We adopted Envision Littleton 2040 in 2019. It was the update to our comprehensive plan. Closely following on the heels of that, we updated our unified land use code in late 2020. This was the first time the land use code had been updated since the 1970s. So there was a lot of work to streamline and simplify how many zoning districts we had, as well as a focus on development along our corridors, and also supporting, creating a land use code that supports housing and diverse development. So a lot of work goes into that, heavy lift, of course, since it had been the first time in decades. Once that work was completed, there was really a desire to demonstrate to City Council and the public that all the work that we did on the code was having the intended results in terms of development, and also the desire to provide an accessible public interface so the public could really understand this work. So as part of that work, the digital twin developed to provide that context, as well as visual representations of the zoning code requirements, including setbacks, heights, et cetera, to really visually communicate those requirements, and as well to create a platform where development scenarios could be built out in ArcUrban, or potentially down the road to allow developer renderings or using for reviews internally as well. After that was done, we had the option to create a suitability analysis. And Littleton Littleton really kicked off its housing journey in 2017 with the housing study, and then the comprehensive plan incorporated the housing goals into that. And then also when we did the ULUC updates, helped to support the housing goals and the housing need that we'd identified. And then in 2022, the city passed an inclusionary housing ordinance to try to create more affordable housing without unduly burdening market rate housing, because there was a recognition that we had housing goals and needs and we needed both market rate and affordable housing to get there. So the inclusionary housing ordinance required that 5% of new residential developments must be affordable, or developers needed to pay a fee in lieu. With the IHO, it created 2 tiers of incentives depending on whether the project was majority affordable, if it was for sale missing middle, or just kind of all other projects. The incentives created parking reductions if it was within a quarter mile of a transit station, open space reductions if it was within a quarter mile of a park or open space, an increase in the max dwelling units per acre, a reduction in minimum lot requirements, as well as some fee rebates, a reduction in neighborhood meetings, expedited development review, and height bonuses in certain areas downtown. Given that we had recently passed that and housing was a council priority, it made a lot of sense to do the suitability analysis for affordable housing opportunities. So we created the weighting factors, taking a look at the distance to transit, the ownership, which we heavily weighted towards public or nonprofit ownership, knowing that that kind of can be more helpful for affordable housing, to kind of create a subsidy to help make those projects happen. Also looking at the zoning, the land and capital improvement values. And once we had those results, we then went on to identify 2 parcels that had the higher scores, the more suitable scores, so that we could model the potential development in ArcUrban. The idea with doing that 3D analysis was to compare what we could have built under the old code before the updates, what we could build under the current code, and then what we could build under the current code with the inclusionary housing ordinance incentives. And really, it was meant to take a look at whether the regulatory changes we made were working as intended, and then potentially also look at extrapolating out whether the changes we made were enough to really support and get to our identified housing goals. So this first site, we modeled out a majority affordable site, which are our tier 2 incentives. So similar incentives, just a little deeper than what our tier 1 incentives offer. So this location is parking lot and an open space behind a church. The prior zoning on it was a PD that didn't allow residential at all. So that was a pretty easy comparison. You could not have built this under our prior zoning. The new zoning is corridor mixed, which is one of our more flexible zone districts. So there's a lot of flexibility in use and density. And then taking a look at the site, really looking at the massing, we started out kind of looking at 4 stories, but then we're able to see in ArcUrban, this site is kind of on an elevated hill, and there's residential houses behind it, and it's commercial to the east, and then apartments to the west. So looking at 4 stories kind of on a hill with the single family residential behind, you could really kind of see that that might create some concerns. So then kind of looked at 3 stories, but then still wanted to take a look at like the sight lines and the shadows it was going to cast, which ArcUrban kind of allowed us to do that analysis. Just the concern, if you're a house behind here, are you worried about residents looking down into your yard? Are you creating more shadows? Here in Colorado, creating those shadows in the winter can be a real problem for plowing. So also it's a retail center to the east. So, taking a look at, is that going to have an impact? And just really helpful to take a look too. And then in looking at 2 stories, here's the number of units that we can build out and what that looks like. And what was interesting in reviewing this site is you could really see, one, understanding those shadows and view planes and what this would look like in the context of the neighborhood, which is really helpful, but then also seeing that the parking reductions provided really do help provide more units on the site and make the site a little easier to develop out. The second site that we looked at, we wanted to look at more diverse housing. These are existing parking lots at a light rail station. So we really wanted to take a look at what would it look like if we modeled out some for sale housing, maybe some missing middle housing, because we have some incentives for sale missing middle housing. There's a nearby art school, there's downtown historic district, obviously there's transit proximity. So what could it look like to get to this sort of housing type? Because we know that the affordable for sale market is difficult to get to. And then again, just looking at the context and what that would look like. And we also knew too that the transit district is starting to shift their strategy with their parking lots and their extra land because post COVID, people are utilizing the light rail a lot less, and there's a lot of extra parking that is not being utilized. And the state recognizes we're in a housing crisis as well, so there's some pressure to do something a little bit more with the land. So knowing that there's a shift in that strategy, it makes sense to take a look at modeling out what could be built on the parking. And this site has parking that's actually at the station, and then there's an overflow site for parking as well. That's just a surface lot parking right now. We looked at a bunch of different options on this. You can see as the video scrolls through, and kind of ended up with a larger sort of multifamily or condo unit, and then maybe some live work townhome models. And then the final one also kind of had sort of an artist community kind of a feel to it to kind of connect in, create that walkability. The parking here again became the most important incentive in the conversation, more so than anything else. We can see on that spreadsheet there that there are 2 scenarios that we run that can't actually be built because we can't meet the parking requirements. So we can see here that the inclusionary housing ordinance helps provide the affordable units and housing that otherwise could not be built, which was the intent of some of the incentives for it. So it's great to see that some pieces of it are working as intended. I found interesting that the open space reductions and some of the other incentives were not nearly as impactful as maybe you would think about just thinking about it off the top of your head. And really with this site, we really wanted to stimulate creativity and a conversation to review the possibilities of the site more so than outlining a specific project. We're not trying to shop a solution for the site. We just really want to take a look at what can we do here and what does our zoning code allow and what does the inclusionary housing ordinance provide in addition. So going through just kind of the takeaways after working through this. This is still a work in progress. We're still working on the communication pieces and how we're going to communicate this out to the community, how we're going to communicate it out to stakeholders. Sorry. And then as we run through the models, and we'll finish it up and finish up our analysis, the plan is to talk to stakeholders like the regional transit district to kind of have the conversation of, hey, is this something that might be of interest? What are your thoughts on this? And then the diverse housing site was really interesting because it highlights an issue that we've been seeing in our code. And we had previously had some, before we'd updated the land use code, had some slot homes that had been built. So when we updated it, created some standards to avoid slot homes. But when we're looking at sort of like the artist enclave and community, it's facing a lot of green space, which actually is a challenge in our code because to avoid the slot homes, you have to be street facing. So it's interesting because it sparks that conversation of, well, theoretically, this would be great to have here because it connects in and it creates all of these things that we want as a city, but our code may not actually allow it. So is this the kind of development that we want? What does this look like, right? Like this doesn't look like slot homes necessarily, but do we need to make some amendments and changes there? And it's great to kind of be able to see that represented visually and to spark that conversation and creativity of, what do we need to do? What can we do? Are we doing enough? And it also is kind of helping us talk through where can we do more? Where can we deliver faster on affordable housing? Can we help us find a path to having more and a larger housing policy conversation? So it's really helpful, both in the 3D model and in the ArcUrban modeling, to have the visual interpretation of the zoning so that you can review what's working and where we might be able to take adjustments. And it's also great in Urban to test out the theories and then just be able to model it out and see the impacts of what it actually looks like. And I'd say like using ArcUrban, like it's a good tool. It does require kind of technology know-how and support. So just kind of that understanding of from the planning department what you need, but then also the technology piece and how you can use it. So that is kind of the runaway. And with that, I will turn it back over to Suhag.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Give me 1 second, okay? You still see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, thank you, Julie, for taking us through the city's journey. I think we started working, about 4 years ago. We started with building a digital twin first, using Esri's 3D base map solution, using the LiDAR data. We first configured ArcGIS Urban to help write the unified development code. We tried different various scenarios to test planning theories before adopting the regulation. But I guess the biggest chunk of our engagement came in by building scenarios using ArcGIS Urban to test the affordable housing policy against the existing and the newly adopted UDC. And that was the real test if all the regulation we think supposed to work would really work in real world scenario. And we are glad that we are seeing some positive results. It's a great case study. In addition to what the city did here, there are 4 unique ways we could leverage ArcGIS Urban. So from the top left, it's a suitability analysis. And I think in my professional opinion, it's one of the least appreciated feature from ArcGIS Urban. It requires more love. I think it can do some phenomenal things. It's a perfect tool to identify the most suitable parcels within a study area based on the number of variables. You can have n number of variables. There is no limitation of that. And you can create certain type of weightage to see different suitable parcels popping up in different colors. A learning nugget from our past experiences, there is a limitation that we know of. If there are too many parcels, the sweet spot is about 8,000 to 10,000 parcels. Beyond that, sometimes the suitability analysis fails. We found this bug recently, and Esri team is working very diligently to kind of fix this bug. I guess the recent move to the enterprise version may not have the same bug. I think this bug was more noticed in ArcGIS Online, but I think in the next release in October, that bug should be resolved. The top right is the development review process. This is an urban-led workflow that can unite multiple departments into one unified process. So for instance, every city has a different process, of course, but it starts with some site feasibility. We can do some zoning checks. We can do utility coordination with public works department, with landscaping and buffer. We can have an architectural review committee come in. And all of those workflows, instead of all these departments going to their own little way of working, they can all come to the one central app called ArcGIS Urban and do their analysis. Learning nugget is a deep training across multiple departments required, which is obviously challenging for a lot of local governments, let alone just doing the planning and zoning. Now we have to teach it to 4 or 5 other departments. And of course, it would require multiple licenses that would increase the overall cost. So it may just change the bottom line a little bit. The bottom left is building scenarios. My favorite feature, we use it all the time. It's a widely used feature as well. Of course, the biggest advantage of this is it can help you with the ideology of truly know before you build. Of course, there are no limitation on number of scenarios you can create. The learning nugget from our experiences, it does require deeper understanding of your own zoning ordinances. It also requires higher understanding of as an ecosystem in a way around the ArcGIS Urban features. And this is a highly acquired skill. Product also is going through a lot of great movement updates every quarter. So even keeping up with could be an issue as well. But by far, one of the most successful feature. The bottom right is visualizations. So basically, whatever great work and scenarios we created, we can take it to a different level by connecting the city engine or the VR, 360 VR. It can be a great tool for citizen engagement. The 360 VR connectivity is getting better and better and getting even more seamless. Learning nugget here is very similar to building scenarios. It does require deeper understanding of Az's ecosystem and also outside tools, only because you're exchanging the data and handing over the data to a different platform. So now, kind of going back to my original slide, we put this workflow for zoning modernization into an advanced category for the reasons primarily around require additional training or enhanced training, relatively high entry point to software licensing cost, intricate knowledge of urban planning principles. You gotta be a great planner and you need to know your own zoning ordinances better, but also it requires a good vision because one needs to know what's the end outcome. So the scenarios can be built to achieve that vision. Software can only do so much, but you need to start with the end first. Of course, deeper understanding of Edge's ecosystem is required, such as ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, sometimes City Engine, coupled with outside software such as AutoCAD, SketchUp, BIM, Revit, Unreal Gaming Engine, Twinmotion, and things of that nature. You with me? I hope it makes sense. Now let's tone it down a bit to a medium level workflow now that we see what Urban is capable of doing. And then I will do a quick live demo, hoping that it will work out just fine. So give me 1 second when I can change the gears a little bit. Now let's shift gears to more custom web mapping capabilities through GeoZone and see how the features developed through GeoZone mapping portal would fall within the easy, medium to advanced categories. So allow me to shift gears to the actual mapping capabilities. Okay. So what you see here is City of Littleton, Colorado. I just want to continue on the theme that what City of Littleton has developed up until this point. And what you see here is the actual digital twin created for the City of Littleton, Colorado by leveraging various different LiDAR points, in fact, millions of LiDAR points, and building this 3D context. You don't have to have the 3D context. However, it does make a huge difference whenever we build a context like that. Now, a couple of things we have done right off the bat is when you click anywhere on the map, it does a couple of things for you. For instance, you come here, you get to see the Google Street View, the actual that you can interact with it. Now you can just turn around and see what this building looks like. And now you see that this is a courthouse, if I remember correctly. And now you see here, we have built a very similar looking 3D context for them. So truly, we understand what it looks like on the ground. You don't have to go through Google Earth. Now we have a series of different zoning hyperlinks, meaning that we accurately can now showcase which zoning regulations or ordinances are applicable to this specific parcel. Now the planners who may be on the job very recently or even been on the job for a long period of time, they don't have to wonder what sort of regulations are applicable. Without any prior institutional knowledge, you can accurately showcase these are the standards. And let's see if you want to go and take a look at the sign standards, it will directly take you to sign standards. So we just taking away all the different inefficient part of the workflow out and present you the results right away. You can, of course, look at all the parcel ownership data. And here, this is where we start changing gears. In fact, you know what? I want to tell you one more thing here. Do you see this set of regulations? Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to turn off the realistic trees because it is very, very confusing. I'll take a look at here. You click here, and there are different set of standards available. They may be overlapping, but the regulations between different parcels within a different district will obviously have a different set of regulations. So our system is smart enough behind the scenes to be able to recognize that and produce the results that you need. But the areas where we get to differentiate ourselves is ability to decipher all the setback standards. Now we clearly know what are the front setback, side setback, height requirements, minimum set requirements, all the allowed land uses. They're all available at our fingertips. If you have certain inline graphics such as this, we will be able to bring them in. And we also recognize that no zoning ordinances is straightforward and clean up that you can just provide you one set of answers. There might be some little notes that may be applicable that the planners are required to go and take a look at it. We will also produce that. So just think about this for a second. In one click, a typical requirement that would allow you to go to 4, 5, 6 different resources such as Google Earth, Google Map, multiple chapters of your zoning ordinance is going to county appraisal district data. You have to spend a lot of time doing the research for identifying the setback standards, typically a 15 to 30 minute worth of research for single request. And remember, you have 15, 20 requests like that. we can do that under 30 seconds. Now it just produces a detailed parcel summary report. You can download them, and the PDF that you see are also hot links. So you can click on anywhere and it will still take you directly to the map portal. Now you can email, download, print these parcel summary reports, just like that, right? So this was one of the first um, stopping point where we just simplifying planners daily workflow. Okay. Now let's think about how can we take it further? How can we make it even more detail oriented? So we built a tool called land use lookup. Now land use lookup is designed to give you an exact answer with a scenario where a developer comes to the planner's desk and say, I want to build such and such. Let's take an example of I want to build an office building more than 8,000 square feet. So we build a calculator where you click uh, on this, it will produce a calculator. Now you can do a drop down or you can even type in. So let's say I want to type in office spaces. Let's say greater than 8,000 square feet. This is where it will tell you what is the conditional use versus permitted by right. And when you click view and map, it will dynamically link back the filtered view of the district that satisfy the category of commercial use with more than 8,000 square feet of office. Now you can actually visualize all those districts without any other interruptions. It's a huge help. There is no tool out there will allow you to simply do that. Now let's go to the next level. Can we upload some addresses? So here we have Littleton. I just took an example of few addresses. We have these 9 addresses, simple addresses in a single cell. If you just point that Excel file, we can geocode all those. So imagine if the developer comes to you with those set of addresses, we can simply display them on top of the land use lookup results. You can go to each one of them individually and see where do even they fall, right? And you will quickly realize that there are only 2 of those results fall within that category. So now if you zoom closer to it, now you will be able to recognize that when you see this is the particular parcel, now you can do your additional research. You can click on it, right? You know what it looks like on the ground. Looks like a gas station. We know it's what district it falls under. We know what it takes to build on that parcel, right? We know who owns it. Clearly 7-Eleven owns it, right? And now we have all the different setback requirements, right? So this is like a huge help while we had a discussion of coming up with 9 or 10 addresses to coming up with what you can do with it in the matter of minutes, which typically takes multiple meetings. Now, just like that, when you click on check build potential, this is where we are pushing the envelope of the technology. Now, all of a sudden, based on the underlying ordinances, we are able to showcase what type of true build potential. Now let's dig deeper. It creates a detailed statistics. It tells you what's a buildable area, parking requirement, and again, all of this is read directly under the hood from your own zoning ordinances. Now let's go down a little bit. We can take a look at the existing buildings if you want to. Within that, we can turn off if you want to. But now if you stay close attention to it, you said that all the setbacks based on the underlying, they give you multiple options and we happen to choose a distance, right? Now, this is a unique situation where they have a different typology of the building, has a different setback standard. So obviously in the office building, it's 0 or up to 15. So maybe we can put as 15, right? And of course, this is 0 is triggered because of certain type of contextual information that only a planner can really decide on. But let's just keep the ball moving forward, and let's just say we come up with, let's say this is 8 feet, and the rear, right? Now, a rear office is 10 feet also, so we already have that, right? Now you will notice that now we have a much better kind of looking building potential. Now let's look at the height. The height could be 80 to 91 feet for office, right? So we're just gonna change that to, just for the record, just do 80 feet. So you can actually build this based on the ordinances. Now quickly realize that this is considered as a side, but we want to treat that as the rear. Okay, so right now the side is 8 feet and the rear is 10 feet. I'm just gonna, for the record, I'm just gonna make it 20 feet so that it, or 25 feet, okay? Pay close attention to it for the buildable area. So I can come here and I can change this side to rear. All of a sudden, the building envelope changes, and so is the buildable area. So these two are interlinked and clearly showcasing it to you. Now, all of a sudden, we clearly get to see the true potential of the parcel with accurately showcasing what's the true height, setback, and how it fits within the entire district. You see that? Right? I want to showcase something more to you. So I'm going to go back to a different map portal and I'm just going to go to the exact same site because we have built certain analytical tools that might be much more. I think it was here, right? I'm going to check the build potential. Okay. And I'm going to make the front. So in the front, I'm going to put that as a 15 feet. On the height, I'm going to make it as 80 feet. Okay. And the rear, I'm going to make it as 25 feet. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to change it as rear. Okay. And then the side, I'm going to make it as 10 feet. Okay. So now you have a true building. Now we build certain additional tools that will enhance planners' experience to lead to a more informed decision making, such as this. So let's say we have a line of sight tool where we can run analysis. I can click here and see who's back here. I will be able to see if I'm on the top floor, right? And I can just keep on going. And I can see how far along I will be able to see it. It's kind of a neat analysis. We can even see a new elevation profile. So I can just draw a line here and you will be able to see that depending on where I'm clicking, this is the actual build. And you can see a little circle moving on the map also, as you can see. You can even see the pitch of the roof here, right? So you can understand that the elevation here, this is in meters, which you can change it into feet, right? Now you can see the elevation is 54, almost 5470, all the way to about 5452. So about 20 feet worth of elevation difference as well. So you can do that. You can always have a different sunlight experience. So we can see what's the shadow experience is going to do. We can do even a long-term shadow cast. So we can see that. You see that, and you can change the color if you wish to. So you can change any color you want, right? And then you can even have a different, for fun's sake, we can do a little bit of a weather as well. So I'm going to click that one more time. I just happen to click somewhere else, but you get the point that we have these different analytical tools that we can leverage it. At the end of the day, you can take this out to the next level and create a custom PDF summary report that you can download it or email it to anyone. This statistics has given you all the relevant setbacks through which we made the decision. But at the same time, we have these different setback standards and all the allowed land uses on the same summary report, right? So to summarize everything, I mean, we can go on to a lot of other different tools as well. But the idea is we are trying to provide you tools that is truly designed for planners and kind of help you through a decision-making process that is driven through your own information, your own data, and with 100% accuracy. Excuse me. Now let's shift gears, and there we go. I hope you can still see my screen. So let's talk about where does this fall within our easy to medium category. Now, again, we call this as a medium category because in addition to you leveraging ArcGIS Online, it gives you a deeper understanding of your zoning ordinance, but also it requires some level of configuration, right? The output you can get out of that is it obviously respects the standard business practices. But again, this is also a one-stop mapping application for all of your planning and zoning needs. You can also access a private layers that is supported by ArcGIS Online. Okay, so it is designed around your needs. You can have 100% data confidence. It works for cities and local government of all sizes. We have a town with 3,500 population and 1.5 million population counties. Yeah, believe me or not, using the exact same application. And in my opinion, it's a true predecessor to ArcGIS Urban. ArcGIS Urban does a great job creating various different scenario plans when you have a one parcel or single parcel, two parcels, or a small area. However, what GeoZone is designed to do is at a parcel level gives you the true potential of what that parcel has to offer to you. Hopefully, based on the demonstration, you would know that it requires little or no training. Okay. And it's also a great tool for citizen engagement, city council, and stakeholder involvement. What are the takeaway points? As I just mentioned, this could really lead you. I just talked about all of those points. However, you know what I mean by getting all those takeaway points to a one-stop application, to 100% data confidence, to a great citizen engagement tool. With that, I guess I would like to bring Elliot Hartley from GD3D and showcase what City Engine angle has to, what City Engine can help us for zoning modernization. Now, with that, I will hand it over to discuss more advanced and custom workflow with Elliot. I'm going to stop sharing, Elliot.
Hi, thank you, Suhag. Let me press the button on share and pray to the PowerPoint gods that this will work. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep. Okay, so hi, my name's Elliot. I'm the Managing Director of GD3D, a partner of ViewPro. We've already seen the fantastic tool set assembled by planners at ViewPro, and we've seen how these tools and services form a solid foundation for helping cities like Littleton's formulate new zoning codes with the use of powerful tools like GeoZone and ArcGIS Urban. I've been invited by Suhag at ViewPro today to talk to you about City Engine and the potential it brings for enhanced scenario planning and stakeholder engagement. No longer are planners stuck in 2D maps and simple 3D mass models. Increasingly, planners are seen as the foundational creators of true 3D digital twins. So we've already seen that foundation of a 3D digital urban twin at Littleton. A lot of work gone into it, obviously. Simple massing and zoning layers combined with scenario modeling on the web is certainly powerful. But if you notice, Julie also said, how do we communicate that next? So, okay. What if you want more? What if you or your organization need a more customized approach to city planning? What if you need the ability to publish your planning scenarios in digital twin for high quality renderings and stakeholder engagement? What if those stakeholders are looking for more realistic looking, engaging and interactive environments? What if you need to work with different 3D formats? Well, this is where you might want to look at a highly specialized 3D urban modeling tool from Esri called ArcGIS City Engine. What is City Engine? Well, technically it's a desktop application and it's a 3D procedural modeling application that at its core generates 3D geometry from a coding language called CGA. To be honest, it can be many things, but in the context of this webinar, you can think of it as an urban toolkit capable of helping you manage various 3D formats while enabling you to create your own scenario planning models with customized metrics. I won't pretend that ArcGIS City Engine is easy software to use. It does require some time to learn and there is some preparation work required. Don't take my word for it. Read the quote from City Engine, City Engine's help file on screen at the moment. But as you complete more projects, the timescales can dramatically speed up. This is what we found when we were working on city master planning projects in the Middle East with City Engine. As a City Engine specialist and official Esri UK instructor for over 10 years now, I know the challenges that it can present already overworked GIS and planning staff. There are 3 areas I believe City Engine is best used for with the current audience we have today. That's not to say you can't do other things, but I think we better keep it simple for today's session. So, developing planning scenarios quickly with associated metrics and analysis like viewsheds. This is really its core functionality. It's really where it works best. And it's where you're using procedural code to generate geometry and things like It's also quite good at publishing or exporting 3D scenes to multiple outputs from the same single source of truth. It supports a wide range of 3D formats. I'll challenge you to find another software package that does similar, not just geospatial, but the rendering packages as well. And then I would say it's really good at manipulating and georeferencing existing 3D models. And some of the clients here, some of my clients will often be having 3D models submitted by developers, for example, and you need a way of georeferencing them quickly and putting them within that sort of digital twin environment. So really useful, but it's whatever you want it to be, really, depending on your sort of, workflows that you've got. So City Engine is amazing at creating 3D geometry, simple or detailed, combined with the ability to produce reports or metrics based on the geometry it creates. Asking conditional questions like how much floor area can you get on this site based on a maximum height of 5 floors and setbacks from street sides of 4 meters. City Engine can easily help you there, a little like ArcGIS Urban. But if you want to add more articulation to the building and orientation, hopefully people don't just want extrusions from a plot. Now you're able to iterate through a number of development possibilities very quickly based on real-world zoning attributes and metrics. On the video that should be playing now, you can see me working on one site in Washington, D.C. Don't read into this. I just wanted a recognizable demo area, and they provide free downloads easily. And as I create new scenarios with different setbacks and articulation, I get different metrics, which you can see here on the dashboard that's updating live as I go through a project. I can compare each to each other. Plus, with a flick of a switch, I can build high quality details and textures with these models. So at the end, you'll see textures and details appear. Yes, the video is sped up a little. I can't work my mouse this fast. It's a 10-minute video down to 2 minutes to give you some understanding of how quick it's going. Grasping scenario planning in City Engine can be relatively straightforward. However, you must always try and ensure that your data is geospatial, not CAD preferably, and is attributed. Regardless of what you are doing, City Engine works best with consistent attribution and clean geometry. Next, ensure you understand what you need from City Engine, as this can dictate the level of effort you need. Simple colored massing is obviously easier, but for texturing buildings, you may require better knowledge of City Engine coding, especially if you don't want to use the stock of rule files that Esri provides. There's quite a bit of resources available to use straight away from Esri. Be sure to check out their tutorials for more detailed buildings and that kind of thing. But if you want to learn more, you can also search for my YouTube channel on GD3D. Shameless plug there. I'm sorry, Suhag. So what next? Well, of course, how do we communicate? You've created your scenarios, you know your metrics. Now you really need to sell it, right? You need to sell it to whoever those stakeholders are. Your next set of decisions, which in reality is often done at the start, is who is the target audience? Do they require interactivity, or is this a static image for a report? A lot of the time, I suspect it will be more than one answer. So what are your options? There are 3 that don't require any additional software to City Engine. Then there are 3 other options that do. The easiest is exporting static viewpoints, bookmarks, and City Engine to simple imagery for use in reports. No fancy workflows, just create your bookmarks in places you want and save the snapshot. Exporting to ArcGIS Online. Simple enough. Select the layer or layers you want to export as a scene layer package and share and publish to your ArcGIS Online account. In the ArcGIS Online Scene Viewer, just add your City Engine layers like you would any other GIS layer. Within this as well is the option to share the whole City Engine scene, not just individual layers, as one pre-made scene, combined with modified terrains. So this is one of the few places City Engine allows you to modify terrain, raise it up or down, and export that modified terrain out to ArcGIS Online and override the underlying base mapping. And the third simple sort of export, which I found really powerful recently, is 360 VR. It sounds very high performance, but the reality is these are 360 images which are scenario aware, so separate from the ArcGIS Online scene viewer, and can be viewed with or without a headset. But if you do have one of these things, you might want to try out a MetaQuest type headset to see these in all their glory. But really simple to do, and fairly low maintenance in terms of updating and things like that. Okay, so beyond the simple exports onto the ArcGIS Online platform, we can look further at your options. City Engine supports a wide range of 3D formats, so really you can choose where it goes. SketchUp is popular, that's what I've been doing today, but there are other 3D programs available as well. However, these are my top 3 for using City Engine in companion with another piece of software. I can't not mention ArcGIS Pro. This is really where things can get interesting. Bringing your scenarios into a file geodatabase means you can add additional attribution or do more analysis. You can combine it with other data and then publish it to ArcGIS Online. Notice the screenshot we've got here is the same data you saw me using in City Engine, and you'll see actually I've got the site scenarios with the checkboxes here, so I turn on and off depending on the scenario as well. All viewed with an ArcGIS Pro for integration back within your own digital twin model if you want. Twinmotion. Twinmotion is a desktop visualization software built on the Unreal Game Engine technology. City Engine supports advanced 3D formats like Unreal Datasmith, which allow you to pipe your 3D scenario models into a desktop visualization application like Twinmotion. And it allows you to produce those higher quality static images and videos with moving traffic and pedestrians really, really quickly. This also benefits from a huge realistic 3D asset library, so trees that grow and change with the season, that sort of thing. It's well worth checking out for anyone on this call, actually, because it's pretty much free to download and use unless you're making lots and lots of money out of it, in which case they ask for a license. But it's fairly low cost and easy to use. Lastly, I think what many of us would like to aim for, well, certainly I do in private planning practice, is to put our planning scenarios in a game engine. As you can see here on the video, we can export our models into a high quality game environment. This is Unreal Engine for an even more enhanced stakeholder experience. Warning here really is that it does require, it's not just sending a file format into another application. There's quite a lot of technical capabilities that you need to get a handle of, and so there's a lot of additional learning to get further along. But this video, you can see we swap between characters, we swap between planning scenarios, and you can interact with a sign by walking up to it and getting additional information. So thinking about how people are going to interact with your environments is really important here. The cat may be a side quest. I don't know. It was just there. So in conclusion to my very brief section of the webinar, your geospatial data doesn't have to end in a GIS database, and nor does it end in a web browser or static screenshot. With City Engine, you really do have a number of choices, but fundamentally City Engine and ArcGIS Pro working together can manage your single source of truth and ensure no matter where you publish the data, it all comes from one source. The real work comes from understanding your options and fundamentally having knowledge of your workflows. In my experience, some of the smallest changes in workflows can have a dramatic influence on overall timescales and return on investment. City Engine as a tool is there to add or improve your workflows and not replace anything. So thank you to ViewPro for inviting me and allowing me to share some insights into what I call the art of the possible in 3D when it comes to 3D geodesign. If you'd like to know more, leave a question in the boxes provided, or send me or Suhag an email for later, and we can answer you direct. Okay, I'm going to pass my slide deck back to you.
All right. So thank you, Elliot, for taking us through this wonderful journey. City Engine indeed is a tool to be reckoned with and has got some really cool custom functionalities. Now let's just roll back our sleeves and see where does this fall under our kind of a custom category or easy to medium to advanced category. So we feel that we put this into an advanced to a custom category for the reasons primarily around it is a highly acquired skill. You gotta learn, or you have to have a deep understanding of the entire as-is ecosystem, not to mention a deep understanding of your own planning ordinances and other planning knowledge. Interesting licensing fact is that the City Engine comes technically free with the purchase of ArcGIS Urban license. This is a temporary benefit, so let's enjoy while it lasts. However, entry point to get ArcGIS Urban license may require additional source of funds. As I mentioned, as we experience using the Esri ecosystem as its core, there are a lot of moving pieces, and ArcGIS Urban integration will test all of your past experience using Esri's toolsets, ranging from ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, City Engine, coupled with outside software such as AutoCAD, SketchUp, Unreal, and Twinmotion. So this can very well be also in a custom category because it has true connection to work with outside software. Okay. Now, let's just take a step back all the way back to the beginning when we started. Okay, we started with a lot of tools at first. It is overwhelming and very hard to take it all in, right? However, if you zoom closer, it's not that complicated. There are four handful technologies that we need to be focusing on. First and foremost, ArcGIS Pro desktop software, ArcGIS Online or Enterprise, which is a web-based capabilities, ArcGIS Urban with 360 VR extension, and the fourth is City Engine. Okay, and if you decide to stay within the easy to medium level category, you may only have to deal with ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Pro. You don't have to do it with all four. So with a full understanding of these one, two, three, or all four of these technology pieces or tools, all of your zoning needs can be fulfilled no matter if your zoning workflow falls under easy, medium, advanced, or even custom workflow category. Make that sense? And now, just wanted to pull together some of the simple concluding remarks is always begin with end in mind, but stay flexible. Some tools can have limitation and data challenges. Uh, So allow me to rephrase. Begin with end in mind, but stay flexible. Data may challenge you and may force you to change your path in how to get to the endpoint. However, respect those and try to find an alternative capabilities. So begin with end in mind. There are multiple tools can produce the same results, but try focusing on what's important for your organization goals. So what I mean by that is put efforts where there's a long-term and a sustainable ROI, return on your investment. Stay within your lanes, respect your organization constraints, and try growing one step at a time. For instance, graduate slowly from slow to medium workflow to an advanced workflow. You may not want to go all the way to advanced workflows where extreme level of capabilities are required and your organization may not be ready for it, or you may end up spending way too much time and resources accomplishing some really cool graphics and videos that may not give you the best return on investment. Easy, medium, advanced workflows, each one of them require training. I cannot stress this enough that they require some level of know-how, training, and retraining. For all the consulting friends who have joined in today, knowledge transfer back to the client is also very essential for long-term success. And I'm sure you know what I mean. If the staff doesn't know, if the folks who will be taking this further that do not know how to carry it forward without that knowledge transfer and training, this will go back to the shelf and they will go back to the usual way of working on a day-to-day basis. It is okay to break your long-term vision into smaller projects that gradually go up in complexity. I was saying earlier, more time you spend on each of these workflows, a lot of institutional knowledge around Azure's ecosystem will automatically come natural to you. And I know it sounds a bit difficult that how can we just know it all? However, if you just keep doing little by little and gradually increase the complexity of those workflows, it will be a second nature to you. And I'm saying this with utmost sincerity. Data is key. Start building standard business practices around setting up the data right away. As I said earlier, each of these tools require data to be behaved and normalized in a certain way, and we need to respect that. Okay, each of these tools depends on data integrity, so setting up the data the right way is extremely important. And I will end with this: be a planner and keep things simple. Technology is just means to achieving the right outcome. So continue to keep wearing your planning hat and use GIS nothing but as a mean to get to the your last destination. And just wanted to end with this: that thank you everyone for your time. A big shout out to Bryce for helping us facilitate the webinar today from behind the scenes. Here is our contact information, so please feel free to reach out to any one of us. We would love to hear from you. If you have a specific challenge that you want to solve, then please use the QR code and set up a consultation. You would like to hear your organization challenges, perform, maybe we can do needs assessment and maybe even help you find a suitable solution that works for your organization.